Hi guys! I asked you guys a few days ago what you wanted to see in a tutorial this week, and I actually wanted to make a tutorial because speed paints are nice, but if I'm going to continue making speed paints forever, it's going to be boring. So I wanted to teach you something, and I got a lot of requests for anatomy, hands, and poses, but I don't feel like I can actually teach you something in this because it's best to study from life. Because you have to get the basics down really to be able to draw a little bit better. There's no set way to actually master it right away, so I can't really teach you something, and I can only give you the advice to study from real life, or look at yourself in a mirror, or look at model pictures or something like that. I'm sorry, by the way, for my voice. I caught a cold this week, even though it was very warm, and I don't know how I managed to do it, but it feels terrible and my throat is kind of not so nice, so I'm sorry if I'm sometimes coughing or something. But I'm going to go into something that was also requested a lot, and that was basic shading. And I feel like I know a couple of things about shading and coloring. I feel like coloring in general is my strong suit in my strongest point in art in general. I'm not the best at lining, I'm not the best at anatomy, poses, that kind of stuff, but I feel like coloring is definitely the thing that I'm the best at, personally. I will go over one technique, and I won't go into specific things like shading hair or skin or things like that, even though skin was also requested a lot. So if you guys really want something specific, leave a comment below so that I know what you want for a tutorial as well. But I will go over one technique that will be handy to incorporate in whatever style you're using, because I use it in this style of the drawing that I have open right now, and it's a basic chibi of Mono with line art and flat colors, but I also use this technique with paintings, and you can use it in whatever technique that you really want to use. But yeah, I have the base colors already, and what people usually do when they have the base colors, let me just remove the sketch really quick. When they have the base colors, they take the color of one layer, and they take a darker color and they set the layer to preserve opacity so that they can color within the lines that they already have down. But they take a darker color and they just shade like that. They just do this with every layer, and I'm not saying that this is wrong, but it's not very realistic. They do this with the skin as well. Just a darker color, usually a more reddish kind of tone. And there's no real problem with this at all. But to create a more realistic way of shading, you can actually just use one layer. And let me just explain this using one thing that is very familiar with most of you guys. A light source is something that you use in order to put the shadows at the right places and to create lighting, like highlights, over the entire drawing. When you have a light source of a specific light color, it will create a glow over the entire body of the person or the object that you're drawing. Whatever the base color is that you're going to put the highlights on, it always goes back to this highlighting color a little bit. So you can take, for example, a warmer color, because light is usually a little bit warmer. It depends, because you can also use blue lights, but you can just put that over the entire subject, over the, well, every area really. On the blue, on the pink, on everything. And you can do this with shading as well, and to do this you can just create one layer, and you have to get the right color, and the right color for shading is usually a colder color. And the reason for this is because when there is less light, the first color that kind of fades away is the warmest color, red, and the last color to be visible in less lighted areas is blue, the very coldest color. And what colors I use vary from greenish blue to purple, but most of the time it's very blue. You can see this in your bedroom at night when it's very dark. Your entire room looks like a little bit bluish. And when you're in a very lighted area, everything looks very bright and all the colors are visible, but that doesn't happen in a shadowy area. And that's why when you shade, you actually shade with blue very often. It's very hard to explain this, by the way, because when I learned this, I learned it in Dutch, so it's very hard to translate it while I'm explaining it. But I'm just going to get into what I usually do when I use this technique. I'm actually going to add a little bit of shading to most of the layers that I have, because, for example, skin is not only going to be one solid yellow color with some blue shading. Actually, some reddish glow looks nice on it, even though I'm just drawing a chibi right now. I'm just going to do that very quickly. Doesn't have to be very detailed, of course, because once again, it's just a simple chibi. I use red to shade the skin a lot, but I just like it very much. Okay, so where the light source is going to be is around here. And this means that the shadow that we're going to create is going to be on this side. I actually merged the colored layers together so that we can shade over it using the clipping group layer. And this will make sure that the layer that we're going to color on right now will just be on, you know, the layers that we already colored, the layer below it, you know. And I'm just going to take this blue color, a little bit lighter. Okay, and I'm going to take the water tool, and there's a texture on it which I don't want. And I'm basically going to shade the entire drawing using this. So you don't have to stay within the lines of one object, you can just shade over the entire drawing. And you can see that this creates a really nice shadow that is far more realistic than just shading each individual layer with a darker shade of the color itself. And this is actually a shading technique that is also often used in animation, because you just need one layer for it and it just saves a lot of time. And it looks really nice if you want to create more of a mood in your drawing, because this way you will incorporate the background into your drawing a little bit more, depending on what kind of background you have, of course. And it doesn't happen in this drawing very much, but that's because it's just, yeah, a simple chibi with a simple background, so it still looks a little bit awkward because it doesn't really look like a shadow yet. That's because it's still very blue, and we're going to fix that later. I have a very simple trick for it. I'm doing this real time, so it's going to be very slow into the video, but okay. I hope it's somewhat clear. So I think I'm about done with the shading. Yeah, that looks decent. I didn't forget any areas. I don't think so. Okay, so to create a very much shading effect, you can use a layer mode. And in Paint Tool SAI, I feel like Multiply and Shade are very good layers for this. But in Photoshop, you also have the Multiply layer, but I don't know which layer functions you have apart from that. So just experiment with this a little bit. You also have the lightening layers. You don't need that, you just need a layer that makes the colors darker. And I'm going to select Multiply for now and just check how it looks. And it actually looks a lot better. I'm going to check if Shade looks nice. No, I feel like Multiply is nicer and more subtle. You can see how this makes it more of a shadow. That's because the blue that we use is actually somewhat lighter than some of the colors that we have already used on this drawing. And by using Multiply, it actually makes it darker right away, because it takes the darkness of the original layer underneath the shadow and then adds it on top. So it makes it darker regardless of how light the color initially was. And that's basically how you can shade using one layer, and I'm going to blend it out a little bit more because I think that looks a little nicer. And you can do some color correction, of course. If you don't want very bluish shadows, you can also use different colors if you want. If you want a different mood, you can actually change it into whatever color you want. As you can see, purple also looks really good on this. But if you're in a very warm area, even orange or something can look good on this. I feel like blue suits this drawing the best though. because she is already a very blue-like character. Okay, now I'm going to create some highlights, and I'm basically using the same technique, but I go in with a lighter color, a more warm color as well. I'm going to use pink because I don't feel like yellow really suits this character. And I'm going to create some highlights basically in the same way as I did with the shading. Clipping group, of course. But with the lighter color and in the areas where highlights were needed. And I'm going to set this layer to, I think, luminosity. Yes, that works pretty well. And I'm going to blend out these highlights like I did with the shadows. But I'm also going to make them a little bit harsher in a kind of a weird way, because I already blended them out, so now I'm making them harsher, but it also keeps somewhat of the blending in there. I don't know how to explain that. It's very strange, I'm sorry. I'm going to merge those together as well. I'm just going to quickly shade the eyes a little bit. I'm using a different technique for the eyes because eyes are a whole different kind of thing, and I don't feel like adding the technique that I just showed you to the eyes will look very nice, so I'm just going to do it a little bit different. There we go. I'm merging those together as well, and I am merging everything together now, yeah. Now I'm going to do some color correction by taking a layer and filling it with purple, then use the clipping group layer so that it only fills the character. And I'm using the overlay function to create, you know, a purplish glow over the entire drawing. Also see that I forgot to blend some of the shading here. Sorry. And well, that's about it. That's the technique that I wanted to show you. You can incorporate this in every drawing technique that you want. Like I said, I also use it in my painting technique, and I hope it was somewhat useful, even though this was a short video and it wasn't very, you know, in-depth. It's a very basic way of shading, and I think it's very different from what other people usually do. So let me know if you try it out, let me know if it was useful to you, let me know what you want to see next, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching, bye!